Happy to be with everyone. We had our Guru Purnima parade here this morning, so wonderful day. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We always have Guru Purnima a day early because on Guru Purnima is the first day of the retreat, and it's way too big an activity to try and fit into the retreat. The actual parade and the cleanup and some of the setup even it's a huge event. All three things added together. So we do it on the last Kulam day of the phase, so works out better in our monastic schedule. And it's flexible because it's not a deity's calculation. It's just a very general calculation, the full moon time. And we'll attempt to share the screen. There, looks like we shared. Okay, interesting. Just fixing something here. There we go. July 2nd in Asia. Our first topic. Is from Gurudeva's introduction to our book, Dancing with Shiva, in which he speaks on the importance of effort. And we have a nice story in it as well. More story than usual. Gurudeva states in the introduction, there is a strong tendency when a student first begins meditation to want to. And a question for you. Hope you had your coffee this morning. What is the rest of the sentence? What does someone new starting to meditate want to? Let's see the answer. There is a strong tendency when a student first begins meditation to want to give up external things, to give up work and devote more time to making his meditation the perfect thing. But this is not the spirit of the Master Course. Many more forces that are negative would result from his turning away from the world as possibly already occurred in his work in the exterior world prior to his ever hearing about meditation. That's quite a sentence. So he wants to give up the world. The world is worldly. Meditation is spiritual. So you have to detach totally from the world just because you're starting to meditate. The thrust of the Master Course Correspondence study is to push yourself to new heights, to improve all aspects of your life, meaning inner and outer both. It is you encouraging yourself forward on the path, which our graphic is trying to show. Someone wants to meditate. Gurudeva said that step one is to prove to himself that he can work positively in the world, performing his duties with full energy, intuiting how the whole mechanism of life is constructed, the exterior world, his mind, himself. Master the simple things, perform every task, even the most mundane act, to perfection. So we want to do even better in the external world, not withdraw from it. Then 10, 15, or 20 minutes of good dynamic meditation a day and the Master Course studies to guide the mind along in a step-by-step manner are more than sufficient. So we don't need 2 hours a day when we're starting to meditate. comes down to readjusting our thinking and making our point of reference the reality within ourselves, instead of the reality and permanence of the external world of things, forms and fancy. Once our whole philosophical structure is recolored with Saiva Siddhanta thinking, it is easy to throw the mind into meditation. Then in our daily life, no matter how many external things and material affairs we are involved in, our point of reference is that the energy within and the core of the energy and the self itself are what is real. Don't feel depressed about what needs to be done, and don't renounce it. Instead, really work at it. The key is to put more energy into each activity you are engaged in. Put your whole self in it. Get enthusiastic about it. Then you are flooding more life force through the body, right from the center of life itself. Having the self as a point of reality reference, and not the material things, with the life force constantly flooding through these nerve currents, you are actually seeing what you are doing as part of the cosmic dance of Shiva, as the energy of Shiva flows in and through you. That's a beautiful sentence. Through this practice, you can cut through many of your deep-rooted subconscious hang-ups that were provoked in past lives without having them come to the surface, simply by creating a new habit pattern of facing and looking at yourself as a divine being performing your Dharma in God Shiva's perfect universe. You create the new habit patterns by doing everything as best you can, with as much forethought and as much energy as you can command. This approach will bring steady progress on the path of personal spiritual realization and transformation. The second part of this presentation is a story from our book, The Guru Chronicles, in which Gurudeva shares how his fourth catalyst trained him how to use his willpower to get things done in the material world in a section entitled Meeting His Mentor's Challenges. So imagine a Gurudeva so young that he was being challenged by his teacher. As a young man in the late 1940s, Gurudeva took a ship to Ceylon where he studied with his fourth catalyst on the path, Dayananda Priyadasi, Darrell Pierce, a Sinhalese Buddhist who, during his first visit to the U.S. in 1934, had established an ashram at the Oakland home of Robert's second catalyst, Mother Christine. Dayananda was a dynamic teacher of meditation and occultism and a great patriot of this island nation. So as I've mentioned before, the reason Gurudeva went to Ceylon instead of India was he knew people, his teachers, and knew people in Sri Lanka that would take good care of him and train him, and they didn't have those contacts in India. So Dayananda Priyadasi is one of those important contacts and teachers. Here's his photo. Ceylon was then in the final stages of 21 years of active struggle for independence from Great Britain, which it gained in 1948. The times on this beautiful island nation were unsettled, and the 50-ish Dayananda, who was both meditative mystic and charismatic politician, interesting combination, took advantage of the situation to train his new protege personally in the art of getting positive things done in the world. Within months of his arrival, Robert helped found 2 schools for village children, assisted in reviving the dormant Kandyan dance, worked with local Buddhist monks, and introduced electric power saws to carpenters who had never seen such contraptions. These down-to-earth projects were a part of his early training. Here's the power saw. He later recounted this story. I was happy and awed to meet my fourth catalyst on the island of Sri Lanka, a Buddhist. He was a strong, active Sinhalese man dedicated to spiritual awakening and bringing this through in a vitally helpful way to all of humanity. He had been high in Ceylonese government and was practical and forceful as a teacher. I studied with him for 1 year and a half. In earlier years, Dayananda attained enlightenment in a cave in Thailand by sitting in the morning, eyes fixed upon the sun, following its travel across the sky all day long until it set at night. He practiced under his guru this most difficult sadhana. Then one night, while meditating in the cave turned to brilliant light, and a great being appeared to him, giving him his mission and instructions for his service to the world. My fourth catalyst taught me how to use the willpower, how to get things done in the material world. He was a real father to me. I needed this at 21 years of age. I wanted to meditate, but he wanted me to work to help the village people in reconstructing the rural areas. He assigned me to do different duties, sometimes several at a time, which I had to work out from within myself. One was seeing that a new village bridge was put up that had been washed out in a flood, and bringing into another village modern carpentry equipment to replace traditional tools used in building furniture. I had to take a survey of all the carpenters using handsaws on the west coast of Sri Lanka. I went around with a notebook and listed all their names and addresses and the types of saws they were using, for my assignment was to see that they all would eventually be provided with electric saws. Getting modern equipment into the Moratuwa area was one of the biggest assignments I had ever had. And I had no idea how to begin, for I had never done anything of this nature in my life. Occasionally my catalyst would ask, well, have they gotten their saws yet? All I could do was say I was working on it. Executing governmental changes was strange to me. My life had been quiet with no exposure to methods of business. But even worse, I was in a foreign country that had different customs, subtle ways of relating and suggesting. Most of the educated could speak English beautifully. In the villages, however, only the native languages, Sinhalese and Tamil, were spoken and understood. The craftsmen were accustomed to the old ways, their fathers' ways of making furniture, and were not easily persuaded that electric saws would improve their work. Some had grown up in remote regions where there was no electricity, no running water. So naturally they resisted such a massive change. They made good, sturdy furniture already. Why complicate life further? They must have thought. My natural shyness was the biggest barrier, though. I had to interview people, do research, and convince people of the practicality of electric equipment. Finally, it unfolded to me from the inside how to go about it, an important point, not the outside. I drew up an elaborate proposal, long and wordy, with myriad details, diagrams, names, and addresses. I gave it to him. He was pleased and said, now, what I want you to do is take this fine proposal to the head of the Department of Rural Reconstruction. You give it to him and I will do the rest. But while you are in his office, sit down with him and tell him how fast work is done in your country by using modern equipment to make furniture. Good point. Can do it faster. I was happy. At last I had something definite to do that would bring this project to a successful end. I went into Colombo to the Office of Rural Reconstruction and presented the proposal. The government was convinced, and not many months later, the modern electric saw became available and popular in the Moratuwa villages for any carpenter who needed one. Sri Lanka had just that year received its independent dominion status from the Crown, and there was a lot to do to bring the rural areas up to better standards. I did my part in the best way I knew how and was glad to do it. One assignment like this after another was given to me. The fourth catalyst of mine worked on the philosophy that you do what you're told. If you are given an assignment, do it to perfection. Finish it and don't come back with excuses. If he sent you on a mission, you wouldn't dare return until you had completed that mission, not to your satisfaction, but to his. He might have nothing more to do with you if you failed. I knew that, so I was very, very careful inside myself as I struggled to do tasks that seemed impossible. I could hear him saying, don't fail, don't fall short. You create the obstacles, you can overcome anything, do anything, be anything. He challenged me to work problems out from within himself, offering little advice and often assigning a task, and then just leaving. He was quick to point out my mistakes, even though he knew I was sensitive and couldn't stand being scolded. Imagine that, Gurudeva couldn't stand being scolded. Still, he scolded and criticized harshly. That was good for me, and I'm still thankful for his direct and powerful ways. He made me use my own inner intelligence to complete each assignment, and most of them were of a worldly nature. At this time in my life, that is exactly what I needed, to strengthen the outer shell, to face the path ahead, and then learn to accomplish duties in the world. It was invaluable in later years. Very nice story to illustrate doing things well. When you start meditation, don't back away from the world. Put more energy into what you're doing in the world and do it even better than you were doing it before. Because external willpower and internal willpower are the same thing. External concentration ability and internal concentration ability are the same thing. And for most people, it's easier to improve your concentration working on an external task than it is simply trying to control your thoughts. Okay, and moving on. Our second topic is a question sent into satsang@hindu.org. Please expound, elaborate on the Hatha Yoga postures as they relate to body tuning, preparation for meditation. What are the benefits of this practice? So I chose a few benefits. I didn't try and list every one, but ones that Gurudeva stressed in the resource section on Hatha Yoga in the trilogy. So we'll start with the definition. That's important, understanding it. Hatha Yoga, pronounced correctly Hatha, but in English we don't do that, we just say Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is a system of physical and mental exercises developed in ancient times as a means of rejuvenation by rishis and tapasvins who meditated for long hours and used today in preparing their body and mind for meditation. In the West, Hatha Yoga has been superficially adopted as a health-promoting, limbering, stress-reducing form of exercise, often included in aerobic routines. So it's not a criticism, it's just a factual statement. It's good to do all that, but certainly it can help in a lot more profound things as well. Esoterically, Ha and Ta respectively indicate the microcosmic sun, Ha, and moon, Ta, which symbolizes the masculine current, Pingala Nadi, feminine current, Ida Nadi, in the human body. So that's a clue right there. The name itself is talking about the Pingala and the Ida, the masculine and the feminine currents in the body, which are on the outer part of the energies of the spine. So, first idea is the inner goal of Hatha Yoga asanas is to balance the Ida and Pingala, which is the first benefit. When Ida and Pingala are balanced, the Sushumna is activated. Hatha Yoga balances the Ida and Pingala because it balances the entire body in which the Ida and Pingala run. When the Ida and Pingala are balanced, the devotee is very present. He is not conscious of the past, not conscious of the future. Many take the activation of the Sushumna as the cultivation of Kundalini. Sushumna is the spiritual force. It is also the healing force. Primal energy, not only within the physical body, but the astral and mental bodies as well. So Sushumna is yellow, and the Kundalini within it is an intense white. So Sushumna is a much less intense energy than the Kundalini. Kundalini can almost feel too intense, whereas the Sushumna feels pleasantly intense and is yellow. Second benefit, Hatha Yoga is an excellent preparation for meditation. Though meditation can be performed without doing Hatha Yoga asanas, it is an aid, a great helping hand, especially for the beginning student. One of the greatest benefits is that it makes the devotee aware of his nerve system. First, that he has one. Second, that it has 3 or 4 sections. And third, that the nerve feelings within his feet are different from those of the hands, and again different from those in his head, and so on. Through this study, he learns that the nerve system and awareness and energy are all synonymous. He becomes aware that he is aware that he can move awareness from one area to another. This is a very important point and is the basis, one of the keys in being successful at the Shum approach to meditation is learning to feel. Feel the warmth of the body. Feel the energy flowing through the external nerve system. Many people can't do that. All they know how to do is think. They're thinking about it, but they're not actually experiencing it. So just the idea of learning to feel the energies and actually feeling them is very important. It sounds simple, but for many people it really takes some work to get out of the thinking mind, which all it can do is think about the concept of it versus actually experience the feeling of it. Third benefit, each asana carefully executed with regulated breathing, the visualization of color, and the hearing of the inner sound slowly unties the knotted vasanas within the subconscious mind and releases awareness from there to mountaintop consciousness. Hatha Yoga opens up the consciousness because when the height of the energy, the zenith, is reached in each posture and we change to the next posture, a small or large adjustment occurs within the physical and astral nerve system. So a reminder on the meaning of vasana. So first we have to look at samskaras, experiential impressions combined in the subconscious, and then these combine and form vasanas, which thereafter contribute to mental fluctuations called vritti. The most complex and emotionally charged vasanas are found in the dimension of mind called the sub-subconscious, or vasana chitta, and therefore they're totally hidden from you. And Gurudeva's writing on it, he says 1 plus 1 does not equal 2, it equals 3. If two experiences are emotionally charged and similar in their emotion, they combine and form a third, which is the vasana. So the vasana is the combination of the two powerful emotional experiences that are similar, either positive or negative, and that forms the vasana. So we want to keep the positive vasanas. It's the negative ones that cause strange behavior that we want to rid ourselves of, and Hatha Yoga helps us do that. Fourth benefit, the seed of desire is a false concept in relationship to corresponding objects. The conscious mind throws into its subconscious a series of erroneous thoughts based upon a false concept. This creates a deep-rooted desire complex. Single out the seed of desire by disregarding all other corresponding erroneous thoughts. Then destroy that seed through understanding its relation in itself and to all other corresponding thoughts. The deep-rooted desire complex will then vanish. When the body is tuned up through the correct practice of Hatha Yoga, systematically over a long period of time, the mind becomes so acute, that the student is able to single out the seed of desire by disregarding all other corresponding erroneous thoughts. In other words, in the practice of this alone, he's beginning to burn out the seeds of desire from within. What's an example of a seed of desire? You watch television on a regular basis, say in your 20s, and this is when television had commercials, and you regularly see a commercial for a Mercedes-Benz, and the driver just looks so happy and so successful that you get this concept in your mind that if you have a Mercedes-Benz, you're going to be happy and successful. So, of course, it's a false concept. It's just an ad, but that's what ads are supposed to do, put false concepts in your mind. So therefore, thereafter, you own Mercedes-Benz the rest of your life. So it's okay, but you don't understand that you do it because you thought it would make you happy and successful, but it's not. So getting rid of that idea, then you can buy another car, maybe a Tesla. Okay, then we get one that's simpler than it looks. In the song, Athvaitham Poru Kapam, Yoga Swamiho mentions about Athvaitham. In the song Naluran Tiruvadihal, he makes us feel that the Lord and we are separate. Would you mind forwarding the question, what is the Athvaitham? What is Thuvaitham? There we go. T-H-U. What is Thuvaitham and what is Athvaitham? In which song does Tirumular bring in Athvaitham? So basically, Yoga Swami's songs, some of them are Dvaita, some are Advaita. So let's take a look here. I guess we should, well, and it's probably in the text. Well, don't want to say it in case it's in the text. To start, we'll start indirectly, looking at the first 3 beliefs of the 12 beliefs of Saivism. For ease in understanding the first 3 beliefs, we will look at belief number 3 first, then number 2, and then number 1, going at it in backwards order, first 3 beliefs. Belief number 3, regarding God as personal Lord and Creator of all. Shiva's followers all believe that Lord Shiva is God, whose eminent nature is the primal soul, Supreme Mahadeva, Parameshvara, author of Vedas and Agamas, the creator, preserver, and destroyer of all that exists. Om. Oh, Parameshvara, Supreme Lord, Mother of the universe, is the eternal sovereign one, worshipped by all the gods and sentient beings. So loved is Shiva Shakti that they all have an intimate relationship. So vast is his vastness, so overpowering is he that men cringe to transgress his will. So talked of is he that his name is on the lips of everyone, for he is the primal sound. To love God is to know God. To know God is to feel his love for you. Such a compassionate God, a being whose resplendent body may be seen in mystic vision, cares for the minutiae such as we and a universe such as ours. Many are the mystics who have seen the brilliant milk-white form of Shiva's glowing body, with its red-locked hair, graceful arms and legs, large hands, perfect face, loving eyes, and musing smile. The Agamas say Parameshvara is the cause of the 5 manifest aspects: emanation, srishti, preservation, sthiti, dissolution, samhara, concealment, tirobhava, and revelation, anugraha. The image of Nataraja is the perfect symbol for illustrating the primal soul, Parameshvara, performing the 5 actions. So I won't read how they relate to the 5 limbs. Oh, said simply, the aspect of God Shiva as Parameshvara refers to God Shiva as a person. That's very simple. One of the 3 ways we are looking at God Shiva is as a person. Doesn't have a physical body, but it has a body of light. But otherwise functions as a person. Paramaguru Yogaswami describes Parameshvara in a number of his Nachindanai songs. Here are quotes from 2 of them. O Lord of knowledge, who at Tillai danceth, O Shiva, 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 who art that supreme. O Shiva of Tillai, who by thy gracious nature the 5 actions in the dance dost show through thy sweet holy form. Then to relate this to the question, when we are focused on Shiva as the primal soul, Parameshvara, then the relationship we have with Shiva is that of Dvaita, or dualism, meaning there are 2. There's the soul and there's Shiva. Very definitely Dvaita. Belief number 2 regarding God's manifest nature of all-pervading love. Shiva's followers all believe that Lord Shiva is God, whose eminent nature of love, para shakti, is the substratum, primal substance, or pure consciousness flowing through all form as energy, existence, knowledge, and bliss. No, omnipresent consciousness. Parashakti, supreme energy, is called by many names: silence, love, being, power, and all-knowingness. It is Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. That pristine force of being which is undifferentiated, totally aware of itself without an object of its awareness. It radiates as divine light, energy, and knowing. Yoga Swami described this state in the following way. Sat Chit Ananda. That is one thing. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat is who you are. Chit is omnipresence. Prakasha, light, is from the sun, all-knowing. Ananda is bliss. They are three, but they are one. That is your nature. So you have that nature as well as Shiva has that nature. Omnipresent consciousness. As an analogy, let's look at a japa mala of Rudraksha beads. It consists of 108 regular beads and one extra bead known as the God bead. Each bead represents a soul, and the God bead represents God. This is an analogy. They represent a soul in this analogy, not in everyday usage. If the bead is consciousness of being a bead, it sees itself as separate from all the other beads and from the mala's special God bead. Okay? So the bead is conscious only of being a bead. So there's 107 other beads, just like it, souls, and there's one larger bead, which is God. However, what is inside the beads? It is a thread, and there is only one thread. Thus, if a bead turns within deeply enough and is only aware of the thread inside, that is comparable to experiencing God Shiva's omnipresent consciousness of Sat Chit Ananda. Said simply, Parashakti, this aspect of Shiva, refers to God Shiva as omnipresent consciousness. To answer our question, when we are focused on Shiva as omnipresent consciousness, Parashakti or Sat Chit Ananda, the relationship we have with Shiva is that of Advaita, or non-dualism. There's only one, just like there's only one thread. And we have a third approach here, belief number 1, regarding God's unmanifest reality. This one's a little more subtle. Shiva's followers all believe that Lord Shiva is God, whose absolute being, Parashiva, transcends time, form, and space. The yogi silently exclaims, "It is not this, it is not that. Yea, such an inscrutable God is God Shiva," meaning you can't describe it. Okay, we got the whole text here. Oh, we're running over. Okay. It's okay. When Yoga Swami began living in his Kulimbathurai ashram, he would spend the first 3 days of a week in meditation. He would rest on the 4th day. Again, he would spend the last 3 days in meditation. Even after the devotees began to arrive in great numbers, he would be wrapped in meditation at will. On Shivaratri day, it was his custom to meditate through the night. Few devotees who had the good fortune to be with Swami at these times saw a light shine where Swami's body should have been. Those devotees who saw this shining light for a few seconds believed that this was the divine light that shone from his blemishless form and was his true form. Even those who could not see this shining light were amazed at the erect, still form of Swami, seated like a statue, without any movement. That golden form sat as still as his umbrella in the corner. On one occasion, when Swami sat like that, a crow came flying, rested on his head for a while, and flew away. Yoga Swami made reference to this event in one of his sayings in the book, Words of Our Master, which states, "If you think of the state of Shiva, which is beyond all attributes, it won't come. It will come by itself. One day when I was in that state, a bird came and sat on my head. Even yogis and jnanis can't understand that state." course, Yoga Swami is speaking of the experience of Parashiva. Said simply, Parashiva refers to God Shiva as the transcendent source of all. And to relate that to our question, when we are focused on Shiva as the transcendental absolute, Parashiva, the relationship we have with Shiva is that of Advaita or non-dualism. There is only one. So, in summary, God Shiva, Pati, is a one being, yet we understand him in three perfections. Parashiva, unmanifest reality. Parashakti, pure consciousness, or Satchidananda. Parameshvara, primal soul, Nataraja. The three perfections are helpful division in understanding the nature of God Shiva, but God Shiva is the combination of all three. And again, to answer our question, our philosophy being both Advaita and Dvaita, dualistic and non-dualistic, is called Advaita Ishvaravada, which in English is monistic theism. Tirumular, 1469, we have the idea of Shivoham, which means I am Shiva, which is a statement of Advaita. And I will not try and read all 4 lines, but the third line is the one we want. Enbarahal Yana, okay, try again. Enbarahal Yanamum Edum Shivohamum. So that's Shivoham. That's the word we want. So that's verse 1469 has the idea of being Shiva, which is Advaita. And we get the translation. Those who follow the path of Jnana would declare, the world seen within, the eminent blissful state which is very close to achieve, and the grace gained by us, all such experiences have been brought into effect by knowledge, that's the Jnanam, and a significant contemplation as to I am Shiva. So that's the translation of our line. Brought into effect by knowledge and a significant contemplation as to I am Shiva. Shivoham Bhavana. Such jnanans would surely attain oneness with Shiva, the knowable, at a later stage. So thank you very much.